You're listening to the A.C.T podcast. You better like my daddy's show, you creeps.
Hey now. Welcome to the A.C.T podcast. I am your host, Anthony Christian Tafoya, joined by nobody. Today is I wouldn't call it a special episode, but it's just a me show because I want to talk about something. Oh, yeah. Because I want to talk about something very, very important to me, and I got out of my mom's house, so that's exciting. Shelly is gone forever, so I do want to, let me see here. Let me gather my thoughts real quick. Anybody who listened to the last episode with me and Shelly, I went ahead and posted one of the videos of her karaokeing, so you can find that on the YouTube page, and that's it. It's the only place it's at. And it might be hard to find because it is being copywritten for some reason, even though it's karaoke and it's not an original version of the song. Fucking YouTube. So that's a little quick show update. I plan on getting some more guests on later this week. I am back at my house. My house is about the size of a shoebox. So I have to set up the podcast equipment every single fucking time, and it gets quite annoying. So if I'm doing like solo episodes or episodes with people on the phone, I'm probably going to do it in this room because I think it looks all right. I could probably spruce it up. Let me know in the comments what I should put behind me. Or if you kind of like the, shoebox look of the apartment. Lord knows I love it. I wake up every morning and I say, I love how tiny my house is. It's really great. The American dream. Fuck that white picket fence. I have my shoebox. Anyway, so I wanted to do this episode specifically about one subject because he's been in the news. He's a great hero of mine. And I don't know. I guess I have mixed feelings. Anybody who knows me knows that I grew up loving Howard Stern. He was my hero. He was my idol. I mean, I loved comedy. I loved comedy growing up, and like, if there was one guy that anybody in the 90s, the group in the 90s especially, right, just like had to tune into, it was Howard. He was the one show. Now, I was pretty young when Howard was at his peak, and my mom found him to be disgusting and despicable and whatever, and I mean, she wasn't wrong. He was a big character and a big personality, and he did wildly inappropriate things. I mean, when I started getting older, my parents finally let me get a TV in my room, and I would secretly watch his television show at night, and I would like pause, freeze frame. I would like, because we would record, we'd had the VHS and whatever, and I'd like record his episodes and whatever. And if ever, because they were promoting all the time, right? Well, on the next week's Howard Stern show, Pamela Anderson gets spanked or whatever, right? And they'd show you like all the naked girls coming onto the show and whatnot and pixelate them and whatever. And so I would always record those episodes, and then I'd find like the girls freeze frame, right? This was pre-internet, fellas, okay? You had to take what you got, and if it was a pixelated naked woman, then that's what you got. It was just, I remember my first interaction with Howard Stern, actually. I was at my parents were very strict. I had a very strict household and upbringing when I was growing up, and so the first time I actually ever saw Howard Stern was staying at somebody else's house, of course. Which is why I'm very skeptical about where I send my kids now. Because, I mean, Jesus Christ, anything can happen at a sleepover. But I was actually at a lovely old lady's house, and, she went to bed at like 8 or 7 at night, and I wasn't fucking falling asleep at 7 or 8 at night, and they had fucking direct TV and cable and whatever. I don't know. It was fancier than my house. That's what I remember. And I was just channel surfing. I was completely bored, and like I knew that I could find something inappropriate that I wasn't supposed to watch, right? And so I was bing, 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 bing with the little remote, and I stumbled upon pixelated naked women, and I was like, "Whoa, what the hell?" Like that. Never had seen that before on TV. I was like, "Geez, whoa, what is this?" Like at that point, when I first saw him, it's fair to say I wasn't into the comedy. I was just a horny youngster. And but as they did with that show, they would show like back-to-back episodes, and like the later the night went on, the more they would just show. And it was like a repeat thing. They'd have like a 4-hour block of Howard Stern, and then they'd do like some infomercials or whatever. So they'd show like 1 or 2 new episodes, and then they'd show like the last week's 2 episodes or whatever. So then I remember seeing Yucko the Clown on the next episode, and I was just completely beside myself. I went, how did we get from naked women, talking dirty and mimicking their orgasm sounds, to a dirty clown making a bunch of racist jokes I'd never heard before? It was just, and I was a young guy, so I didn't fucking know what he was talking about. But all the people on the show seemed to like it, and so I just remember like feeling kind of naughty and kind of excited and going like, "Oh wow, look at what I found. I'm so badass." And so that was that. I remembered what channel he was on. He was on E. And after that, whenever I would stay at somebody else's house, I would find that show and watch it. And then eventually, like I said, I got my own TV in my room, and I'd watch it endlessly there. And again, growing up, loving comedy, it didn't take too long that I realized, how funny the show was and whatever. Even though it's fair to say I really didn't get most of the jokes, if any of them. I was kind of laughing at it just because, I was like a dumb kid. I was like, they think it's funny, so I think it's funny, right? The older I got, the more I started to realize how funny the show actually was. And well, I guess it's safe to say it really shaped me, because I can be a little bit Howard Sterny at times. But he's in the news because this story, I guess, is more fluid than we originally thought it was. I think it was last Thursday or Friday. It came out that he was being canceled from his Sirius show, and once this contract was up, that was it. They weren't going to bring him back. It's very similar to the Stephen Colbert situation, where CBS is like, "No, we're done. We're out with you. We'll let you finish your contract, and then we're just going to pull the plug on the whole thing." The Howard Stern one was initially announced in the exact same way. It's canceled. Sirius hates him. They're done with him. He doesn't have the ratings to justify the salary. Well, it comes out a few days later, that might not be entirely true, right? There's definitely concerns about his salary with the ratings, and he still has a much bigger legacy than Stephen Colbert, and I do believe he's got way more pull and way more power than Stephen Colbert does, right? Stephen Colbert was a mild success compared to Howard Stern. I mean, mild is being pretty fucking generous. He never was ever on the level that Howard Stern was. I don't think people fully appreciate. Howard Stern was like pulling down Joe Rogan ratings, bigger ratings than Joe Rogan pulls now, right? And Joe Rogan has like the biggest show ever. Just for comparison's sake, I think Joe Rogan's biggest podcast episode is probably the Trump episode. Last time I saw it was like 38 million views or something like that. And you can fact check me. I don't give a shit. The last time I saw it was like 38 million views, right? Howard used to pull that down every fucking day. like every day. And at the peak of his power, he might have been pulling down about 40 million listeners a day if you included the syndication, the live broadcast, the show, and all that other stuff. I mean, the guy was just fucking massive. And that's not including the fact that he had number one best-selling books. He had the number one selling movie, or the number one comedy movie, and he had all sorts of stuff, right? I mean, big success. Taking over TV appearances, just stuff you don't see anymore. And water cooler talk that you just don't see anymore, right? Where like everybody was like, "Did you hear Stern? Have you seen the new Stern show? Have you whatever?" Right? So there's a lot to break down with Howard. I love Howie, or at least I used to. He was a huge hero to me and massively influential, and I'm never going to hide the fact that I'm massively influenced by him. So if anybody hates my show, they probably hate Howard Stern, right? And that leaves me in a little bit of a conundrum and that's something I actually want to dig into later, because I've always wanted to do this. I know everybody's like, "Oh, everybody's got podcasts now," right? The thing is, I actually looked into trying to do radio shows. I just live in a very, very small town. And I couldn't get into the radio station here, and so it just was what it was. Then when podcasting became available, I have. Can you move? Not the kind of pussy Howard had on his show. When podcasting became available, I started it up as soon as I could afford some of the equipment and whatever, and I took a massive break. And so it's something that I've always wanted to do. I always thought I could get some sort of a following, and that's yet to be determined. Who fucking knows? It's such a crowded market anymore. But at the least, I like doing it, and hopefully a few of you maybe like watching me do it. I don't fucking know. And nor do I really care, honestly, because it's a good way for me to get some of my thoughts out and vent and whatever. But without a doubt, my wanting to do any kind of a podcast or radio or whatever is, almost entirely influenced by Howard. And I gotta say, I'm a little sad if he leaves. It's definitely one of the biggest crash and burn stories I've ever seen of a guy as massive and as talented as him. And now I just feel like we gotta get really serious about Howard. This is gonna be a very, very serious episode about Howard. And if you don't take it serious, then you obviously just don't care about pelicans. And as the great Artie Lang once said, as we all know, Howard is a Jew, and like all Jews, he's wildly powerful and very funny. And that's a divisive statement to make, and that is the type of statement that Howard Stern would have made. Hey, maybe a more comedic tone. Maybe that probably landed flat, but the outside of him controlling all the space lasers and whatnot like that, he was wildly powerful, and I think he is still pretty powerful. And I really do think that he is way more powerful than Stephen Colbert. So whether he's going to leave or not is an interesting question, because I actually think he should leave Sirius. For anybody who doesn't know Howard, he was on terrestrial radio, which is what we call AM/FM radio, which is, the big radio towers and whatever, right? A lot of young people are probably like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Terrestrial radio. That was broadcast through the airwaves, right? The government came down on him a lot over free speech. He was a big free speech advocate. He's now famously said he doesn't care about anybody's free speech but his own, which, at least he's honest. But anyway, in I think it was 2006, he left regular radio, and he left all those massive viewers and listenership. He left all of that to go to a pretty experimental company at the time, which was satellite radio, right? And satellite was not like how it is now. You had to buy the receiver, or you had to have it installed in your car, and it wasn't just like readily available. Cell phones weren't a thing, so you couldn't just download and listen to it. You had to actually put an investment into buying this fucking thing. Now, they had all sorts of other cool stuff, but nobody was leaving free radio in your car and buying a new receiver strictly for, more classic rock hits with less commercial breaks on satellite. And that was kind of what the original pitch was. Like, are you tired of the 20-minute blocks of commercials? Come over to satellite. And people were like, why would I spend like $300 on a fucking receiver for that, right? Until Howard said, I'm going to go to satellite. And people went, oh, that's interesting. So I won't be able to listen to you for free anymore. And he's like, nope, you're going to have to pay for a subscription to come and listen to my show. And people were like, well, is that worth it? And he's like, yeah, you're goddamn right it's worth it, because now it's not going to be censored and shredded to bits by the FCC. And believe it or not, that was a huge selling point. People loved it, and they started going pretty quickly. I mean, he really brought the audience back with him. People have no idea. Sirius was about ready to completely go bankrupt before he signed on. And when he signed on, it blew up. And it blew up in a way that nobody had even fathomed it could. Everybody started getting satellite receivers put into their cars, and it was pushed for a very long time. It was a pretty brilliant business model. And aspects of it are still being used to this day, but like all good things, it has gotten old and tired, and the selling point isn't as big as it used to be, because now we have these things called podcasts. And quite frankly, Howard anymore, he just can't compete with podcasts. And I do believe that if Howard moved from Sirius and just created his own company and went completely independent, because the rumor is he doesn't want to, leave his crew out in the dust and all that kind of shit. And I respect that. I admire that. He should probably do that. I think he would be a much more competitive podcast than people think he would be, right? Right now, we got a lot of right-wingers, a lot of conservatives and stuff like that really cheering this on and whatever. And saying he's a bum and a no talent, whatever. And the guy's obviously not a bum, and the guy's obviously not a no talent. Now, he has lost his ever-loving mind. He's become an elite piece of shit. You're not going to hear any argument from me on that. He has completely backstabbed and betrayed a lot of people, including his fans. And no doubt about it, he'll never regain that core audience that he had, including from people like me. I just don't fucking care what he has to say anymore. I might be more inclined to hear what he has to say anymore if I didn't have to pay $20 a month to a fucking subscription that I don't want, right? And you can try and sell me on Ozzy's Boneyard and Eddie Trunk, and I think Caller Daddy's on there now, and Megyn Kelly, and like, cool. All that shit's free now on YouTube or on Spotify or Apple. Guess what's not? Howard's not. And it's way too exclusive, and it's behind a paywall. Like, it's something that people are still clamoring for, and they just aren't. And I think that's a huge, huge mistake for Howard. I think he needs to really reconsider that, because I definitely think he'd be bigger than like Conan O'Brien's podcast, or God, I'm trying to think of one of these other kind of famous people. He'd probably be bigger than Michelle Obama's podcast, but I mean, what isn't bigger than Michelle Obama's podcast? I mean, some of these people that got podcasts and these massive deals, I don't even understand. Like Meghan Markle, Michelle Obama. I think the only thing bigger than Michelle Obama's podcast is her penis. But I think Howard would definitely beat her out. I think he would beat Meghan Markle out, and some of these other like kind of jack off Hollywood celebrities that got these big fat. I want to say like Bruce Springsteen even has a podcast now. Fuck off. Who knows? Um, it's kind of unbelievable. But I think he would be way more competitive. Would he be competing with like Joe Rogan? Probably not. I don't think so because he's interested, or he's only interviewing like celebrities that people hate now, right? Like nobody likes celebrities anymore. Nobody cares what George Clooney has to say, except maybe Hunter Biden. But other than that, like literally nobody gives a fuck about what George Clooney is saying. And like the only reason Hunter Biden would care about what Clooney has to say is because he's got a grudge on the guy and he wants to fucking kill him or something. But I mean, the way the media reports like how we act like and respond to like celebrities now, and you see it all the time with like movie promotions or even album promotions, like nobody cares what these people have to say anymore. We either like your content or we don't. Most of you have nothing interesting to say, unless you're like Mel Gibson. If you're Mel Gibson, who the mainstream media or the legacy media, whatever the fuck you want to call them, they won't even touch the guy with a 10-foot pole. But, you know, he goes on Rogan and he gets like 18 million views in like 5 minutes. He's an interesting dude that's been completely shut out. Those are not the type of people Howard is interviewing, which is really a shame, right? He's a masterclass interviewer. And I'm not going to say he's not. He's great. It's just I don't really care what Paul McCartney has to say about anything anymore. He's been around for like 100 years, right? I really don't care. This might be controversial, okay? I really don't care about Metallica and what they're up to anymore, right? Because they're kind of like, they're just so milquetoast for metal now, right? Like they're fucking everywhere. And they're so big and like they're just not even a super interesting group anymore. The only thing interesting about them is them literally riding off the lightning. You know, like that magic in a bottle that happened in the 80s, that's what they're riding off of. And honestly, the Black Album, like nobody gives a shit about their new albums or anything else that they're doing. And the reason they sell out stadiums is because people want to hear Enter Sandman and The One and whatever fucking other bullshit they play, right? Nobody's going to listen to anything from 72 Seasons. But that's who Howard just had on recently, right? Was Metallica. And it's like big, fat, hairy deal. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about them. Get somebody new on. Get somebody else interesting on. Somebody who's lived a little more of a life, who hasn't been just completely showered in the piss of the media. If Howard would start re-interviewing or, you know, start interviewing people again that were just interesting, because let's not forget, that's how Howard made his name. He originally didn't get A-list celebrities. He originally got B-list celebrities. The first time like he ever had George Clooney on, George Clooney was on ER and whatever, and he was just cool enough to come in and kind of bullshit in a real way. And he would never do that now. If George Clooney went on Howard Stern now, he would act super pompous and self-important and self-righteous, and Howard would lick his balls and nutsack and just, oh yes George, oh you're just so brilliant George, oh your hair dye looks great George, right? Like that's what the interview would be, versus him like asking him like, so did you bone Sandra Bullock yesterday or what? Like, you know, and people might go like, well that's dirty and pervy and whatever and sick and gross, right? It was way more interesting than like, well, tell us how you feel about the state of the world, George, right? Everybody wanted to hear if he was banging Sandra Bullock. Nobody cares what he thinks about the state of the world, right? Especially probably most Democrats after he blew up the November election for him. But if Howard got back to interviewing people like the Whack Pack, right? Like, sorry guys, him interviewing retarded people was some of the funniest shit you'll ever see. And you can call it mean and distasteful and whatever. Okay, fine. Did you giggle at all? Because I know I sure as hell was. I was fucking giggling all day long with that shit. I mean, and getting back to like having like real comedians in there and having like Jackie Martling and fucking Billy West and Artie Lang, obviously, like Artie. We'll get into that later. Artie, that show soared when Artie fucking came on. Like that's peak Howard Stern. The Artie years, the 9 years Artie was there, man, you couldn't fucking touch that today with anything, right? There was nothing better and nothing more entertaining. And I think Artie would say that, right? Like, well, there's so much I could get into with this. Let's pull back though. I think Howard should break off from Sirius, stop making himself so exclusive and putting himself behind a paywall. He used to always talk about, like, get yourself out there, put yourself up there, and just see where the ratings take you. Like, you got to let it all hang out, baby. Like, if you either got it or you don't. Like, if he still got it, then go out there. Go and compete directly against Joe Rogan. Because we all know Howard now has been on this huge thing about, like, podcasts are gay and blah, 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 blah. And, like, okay, well, this is where the world is now. So quit hiding behind Sirius and acting so I'm great because I had a Sirius contract and I'm on the real radio and blah 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 blah, right? Okay, well that's dead now. Nobody fucking cares, Howard. Like literally nobody cares. So go up against Joe Rogan now, right? And see if you can even come close to matching his numbers. I'm down for that. That would be so interesting to me. I actually think he would be way better than people would give him credit or a chance to be. I don't think he would ever come close to it now. But I think he would be way better than that. I think if he got back to interviewing people again, normal people, having comedians on, not taking everything so seriously. And it's not like saying like he's so self-serious or whatever and like he does like a completely serious show, but he's definitely not pushing the boundary anymore in any kind of way. And that's when comedy gets stale, and that's when it gets fucking just ridiculously boring. And he needs to go and attack that again. Or maybe he doesn't. Maybe he is done with it, right? It's just sad to me because he used to always go after this other radio guy named Don Imus. He'd always go after him and say, Don Imus is too old to be doing this shit. He's not funny anymore. He never was funny, right? He liked him for a little bit. They didn't like him. They just hated him, right? Of course, he pounced all over him as soon as he got in any kind of trouble. But he would just used to ridicule Don Imus for being a shell of himself and being pathetic and weaselly and whatever. And then without any ounce of irony, Howard has become Don Imus. I remember an episode where he told Artie, he said, if I ever become anything like Don Imus, I want you to smash me in the head with a bat. Now, unfortunately, I don't think Artie's allowed in the perimeter of Howard anymore, so I can't hit him in the head with a bat. But maybe Fred or Robin can hit him in the head with a bat. somebody there, maybe Gary. Maybe Gary could release his lips from his butthole and hit him over the head with a bat. Honestly, I would love to, like, if I could ever interview, like, Sal and Richard from the Stern Show. I mean, those two guys, when they first came on the show, I mean, they were so raunchy and so hardcore and threw everything out there for the love of the show. And, I mean, Sal would go on these incredible rants about how Howard is the king and he's so amazing because he goes where nobody dares to go, right? Like, how does Sal feel about Howard now? He can't feel that way about him at all, right? He's got to be like, I'm just keeping this job because it's a good job. Like, this fucking show's terrible, right? He's got to. There's no way Sal from the early days could in any way like this show. I mean, I know he's still working on it, but there's no way he could actually like this show and be like, this is a great show. I just can't believe that. I guess the other thing about Howard though that I want to talk about is just like kind of when he decided when he kind of started descending into the madness. Everybody's been picking this apart for years. Recently, I've been hearing a lot of false stuff, or maybe not false, but new information to me that his new wife, Beth, his second wife, not new. They've been married for like 20 years. The show started going downhill after Beth took over. I never heard that. I never heard that Beth took over or really cared. I heard this other lady's name. I think her name was like Marcy Bowers or something. I should have looked it up before I did this. That was the last person I remember. She was like kind of like a Tony Robbins type from what I remember reading. Kind of like a self-help, financial person who Howard read her book and loved it, and like a kind of a consultant, I guess. And she kind of jumped on the fact that Artie had left the show and went like, "This is your chance to like turn the show around." And he was kind of hesitant towards it, but he started kind of working towards being a little cleaner and a little safer. And then she was like, "No, you got to get rid of like this kind of shit. And you got to get rid of this kind of shit. And like, we're not going to have these people on anymore, right? They're going to hold you back from getting these big A-list guests, right?" Back in 2013, 14, 15, I mean, let's be real. People still cared about what George Clooney had to say and whatnot, right? Now it's done, right? Nobody cares. Now he pivoted in one way to go where he thought was the best for his career. And I almost can't fault him for that. After Trump got elected, though, unfortunately, I mean, the only thing I can say is that, yeah, he has a severe case of TDS, I guess, because he doubled down, or he sold his soul to the devil, or I don't know what he fucking did. Maybe ate somebody. I have no idea if all that shit with like the Illuminati's true and like the white parties and stuff like that. Maybe it is. It wouldn't surprise me. He obviously wanted to get into Hollywood, and he got into Hollywood by being everybody's friend, and he's not going back. Or they got, videos of or photos of him doing some weird ass shit with kids. I have no idea what's going on with him. But he obviously pivoted one way, and he is never getting out of that. And is there a chance he could? I guess. I don't think he will. Whatever this, I think her name was Marcy. I'm gonna just call her Marcy anyway. Whatever this Marcy chick did, I remember he called her out at one of his birthdays. I think it was Marcy, but she kind of killed the show forever. Like, she doomed it. And I think it was 2019, 2018. He doubled down. He said, "I'm woke as fuck," right? "I'm woke. I don't care what you call me. I'm fucking woke." Like, that's, I mean, I don't know. I don't know why people want to proclaim that shit anyway, whether you're woke or whether you're right wing or whatever. Like, I was on Twitter earlier, and I saw some dumb college girl, and she's like, "I'm a senior in college this year, and I'm still not a liberal." It's like, okay. Like, good for you. No, I was worried about that. I was worried you might be a liberal now, right? I don't know why you'd push your luck by going to university, but people keep doing it, so whatever. But I just don't get why he would want to proclaim that. I think he thought he was being transgressive. Honestly, when I go back and listen to that interview where he was, or not interview, but that rant where he was saying, I'm so what if I'm fucking woke? I'm woke, right? If you don't like my show, fuck off. His old spirit was there. The transgressive spirit was there. He thought he was being transgressive. Unfortunately, he wasn't, right? He was just doubling down and raging with the machine. And the fucking machine's lame. Nobody wants you to be a part of that. Nobody wants to hear that shit. Especially when you were the rebel, the guy who threw it all on the line and had some pretty compelling reasons to do it, honestly, right? I think Howard should be remembered and commemorated for his fight of free speech. Like, I know this is a long time ago, but used to be the right wing was kind of more crazy about free speech from what I remember, and now it's the left, right? So safe to say, both parties, once they get a tremendous amount of power, maybe they don't like speech one way or the other. Nor do any of us, right? I'm perfectly fine with everybody's freedom of speech until they insult me, and then I want to punch them in the face to shut them the fuck up, right? I think we're all like that. But he did fight for it valiantly, and I think he was right to fight for it valiantly. what's crazy now is that his show wouldn't even be censored ever, right? Like now you can fucking show tremendous amounts of violence on TV, and like the censorship used to be real, right? Like shows like The Walking Dead, those didn't air on like AMC back in the day. They were like strictly Stars and HBO. Like you had to pay for that shit, right? Which is what, like Howard moving to Sirius, you finally got a show uncensored because you were paying for it. You were asking for that content. That's what made the difference, right? Not it just being on air, but like now that stuff's just on the air. I'm pretty sure like South Park now just airs with no censor, like no bleeping and of the cuss words or anything. Which, when I was younger, I remember the first time they ever showed South Park, the movie, on Comedy Central with no censorship and all the cussing and whatnot, and they had to wait till like 2 a.m. to put it on, and it was like a one-time thing. If you missed it, you fucking missed it. Otherwise, you're gonna have to go and rent the movie or whatever, right? Which my parents were never gonna let me do. So like that was a big deal to me. Like I was gonna watch that South Park movie and like obviously record it, bootleg it. But I think Howard should be commended for this free speech stuff he pursued back in the day, even though he's a schmuck now. I don't like that he stabbed Trump in the back. You know, Trump was at his wedding in 2008 with Beth, and I think they were very close friends. And I truly believe Trump is upset and hurt by the way Howard treated him and disrespected him. I don't think Trump ever really cared if he voted for him or got completely behind him. I think the fact that he like full on attacked his character and attacked who he was as a person, when Howard full on knew who Trump was and knew what kind of a person he was. Howard's one of the few people from Trump's past who has claimed that Trump is a racist and all these other things, who never claimed that before he was the president. I think that's terrible. I think the way he treated Artie Lang was terrible. I don't know many people like you, but like if one of my closest friends, you know, quote unquote closest friends, tried to kill themselves, I don't know if I'd stop being their friend afterward. I think Howard had a right to fire him, you know, or not fire him, but, you know, at least say, like, I don't want you back on the show. It's obviously causing you a lot of issues. But to just, like, I don't even want to talk to you anymore. Like, that's weird. That is a weird move, especially with someone like Artie who literally threw his entire life onto the show for content, for comedy. That's some weird shit. And to see that Howard turned on him like that, that's just crazy, man. I don't know. You know, I had on the old podcast, if anybody wants to go back and listen, and it's been years. On the old podcast, I think it was like episode 52 or something, maybe 53. I had he was a long time cast member. He was well known for being on Stern. His name was Bob Levy, the comedian Bob Levy. I had him on the podcast, on my old podcast. It's on YouTube, but it's on Apple and Spotify. I don't recall me talking a lot about Howard because I didn't want to like just think that was the only reason I was having him on. I really like Bob anyway for other reasons, but I didn't want him to just think like, oh, he's only having me on here to talk about Howard and my days on Howard. There might be some interesting tidbits in there. I know that ended pretty rough with him and Howard as well for unknown reasons. Gilbert Gottfried, the voice of Iago in the old Aladdin show, for all you young people. That's probably the only way to know him now. But he's unfortunately dead. He's one of the funniest fucking comedians ever. You want to talk about a guy that just pushed the line, crossed the line every single time? It was Gilbert. Gilbert used to go on the show and just destroy every single time. And it was the wild shit. Him and Artie doing the news. If you can, find YouTube and find Artie and Gilbert doing the news. I swear to God, you will not laugh harder ever, right? And like, just throwing you back into that stuff. Like, if you're a younger person, you might not get all the references and stuff like that. I implore you to just look them up then. Look up the references. Like, what news stories? Like, if they're talking about Steve Irwin dying and his daughter, if you don't know who Steve Irwin is, go look it up, look how he died, and then listen to that news story and just fucking have at it, man. It's so brilliant and it's so wild and it's so over the top. Some of the best, like, unscripted comedy you'll ever fucking hear. Gilbert always brought it 100%. But before Gilbert died, he told a story that he asked to go on the show, and Howard just said, "Oh, we don't," or Gary, Baba Booey said, "We don't put comedians on the show anymore." And he was like, "We just had Chelsea Handler on." He's like, "Well, we don't put like your type of comedians on there anymore," which obviously Gilbert thought was hilarious because he's like, I never thought Chelsea Handler was a comedian either, because she's not. But he he had more of a feminist bent at that point, and he started putting like female comedians on. Like, I think the last comedian he had on was like Nikki Glazer, which, fuck off. I'm so sick of her face too. Like, quit trying to make her a thing. She's not a thing. She was very funny on the Tom Brady roast. She's always been funny on the roast. That's all she's ever funny on, are the roasts. I saw her do Thursday Night Football last year, and she went on and started roasting the guys, the Amazon panel or whatever. And it was fucking so cringy. It was so awful. It was like, what are you doing, right? Like, it just wasn't the time, the place, the setting, or anything. But like, quit trying to make her a thing. And like, oh, she's so edgy, whatever. She's fine. She does fine in certain contexts. Other times, she's a complete waste of my life. Anyway, Howard obviously started going towards more female-focused comedians, which, I mean, come on, guys, let's be real. Female comedians suck. Like, they're not funny anymore. They never have been, really. But, like, these ones in particular are just not funny, right? This is coming from me. I'm a big Carol Burnett fan. I'm a big Golden Girls fan. I'm a big Lucille Ball fan. Like, those women had more talent in their like pinky toe than any of these new bitches. Like, Amy Schumer is terrible. Amy Schumer is just a scourge on the earth. I mean, she's like, I imagine that she's just, I don't even know how to do. I can't even think of anything to tell you how much I hate Amy Schumer and her humor and her comedy and whatever. Like, oh my God. I imagine that my feelings towards her are like how leftists feel about like Trump voters. Seething rage and hatred. But if you can, go back, listen to Artie and Gilbert on those. Listen to the old Jackie Martling stuff. Oh, all that kind of stuff. Like, you gotta, like, Billy West and Jackie were so fucking funny together. Obviously, Fred and Robin, all those guys were so great together on the show. Find the old clips. That's where it's at. And, like, just everything. Oh, man. Just everything about, like, I could just fall in love with, like, thinking about the old show. Now the new show is just dreadful. Like, I think the last time I listened to Howard was in 2020, and I bootlegged his interview with Tom Brady because I was interested in hearing about Tom Brady leaving New England and going to Tampa Bay. And that was the first big interview he did. And I loved that interview. I thought it was a great interview. And that was the last time I listened to Howard. Had nothing to do with comedy, had nothing to do with anything. I just wanted to hear from Tom Brady because, as everybody knows, I have a massive man crush on Tom Brady. Just thinking back, like reminiscing right now, thinking about all the old shows, though, this is another thing that bothers me. I'm probably going to start, I'm going to probably wrap this one up. I didn't want it to be a tremendously long episode. But the thing that's bothering me right now is like the conversation on X and social media that I'm seeing, especially X, and, whatever. X is X. But there's this thing now from the right where they are acting like one, they're doing a lot of leftist tactics that I don't fucking particularly like, right? Like every time Howard's name comes up, somebody posts a video of him in blackface saying the N-word with George Jefferson. I forgot was Sherman. I forgot what his real name is. Daniel was here. He'd catch me on that. But Howard in blackface saying the N-word, and oh my God, isn't that terrible? We should cancel him, blah, blah, blah. But they do the same thing with Jimmy Kimmel and like, whatever. Yeah, for them being complete and utter douchebag hypocrites, they should be canceled. They won't be, though, and we shouldn't really stoop to their level, right? Like, we don't need to push that. Nobody had a problem with it in the 80s and the 90s, and nobody had a problem with it in the 2000s, like in Kimmel's case or with Sarah Silverman, right? That's the kind of tactics that the left used on the right to get everybody they hated canceled, right? Like Howard Stern isn't relevant anymore, so I don't feel like we need to bring out the blackface video every time. I just think that's ridiculous because he's already sinking. Like the ship's already almost completely submerged. And what does the blackface video do? It just shows that we're dumb and petty as the left can be, right? Like we need to be better than that. The other thing that's annoying me about Howard in particular is like, you can say Stephen Colbert hasn't been funny in a long time, and that's true. And was he ever like super, super funny? I never thought he was particularly like, crazy funny or anything. He was fine on The Daily Show. I never liked The Daily Show, honestly, so I didn't really understand the appeal. I always kind of hated that type of comedy anyway. It was just kind of like the satire of like political punditry. Like I don't fucking need to watch that. Like political pundits are goofy and ridiculous on their own. I didn't really need to watch like the comedy version with Jon Stewart. And so I never particularly found Colbert funny. And obviously he was a complete and utter piece of shit and hack compared to like Letterman when he came on the Late Show. But now there's this conversation with the right, like, Howard Stern was never funny. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, now you're just lying, right? Like, I always thought he was a rat and a degenerate and whatever. Like, fuck off. First off, some of the people saying that obviously never listened to the show, right? Because they would have been like 2 or like 5. Some of these other people are just like jumping into the pool like, yeah, Howard Stern was never funny. Like, like, I don't see what's funny about like throwing baloney at a girl's ass, right? Well, yeah, if you just say it like that, it's not funny. You have to watch the fucking show. The reason it was funny was because of the ridiculousness of it and the fact that they even would talk these women into doing it. Like, if they even got 5 seconds into the show, like, you would see that it didn't just start with them throwing baloney at a girl's ass. Like, they had to convince these people, and sometimes they do wild shit to convince these. And some of these people were just straight up wanting to get plugged onto the biggest show ever so they could start their career. And if they were willing to humiliate themselves to do it, Howard was like, I don't fucking care. Go ahead. Go ahead and humiliate yourself, right? The dignified ones didn't do it. The ones that made it didn't get baloney thrown at their ass. It was like the ridiculous ones that got baloney thrown at their ass, right? And like, oh, I remember The Rock going on throwing pee balloons at somebody's ass. Like, let's just stop acting like it was just so taboo that nobody thought it was funny. And like, it's certainly not funny now. Like, have we really evolved? Does anybody believe that we've really evolved, that we don't think it's funny to watch retarded people argue with each other? Like, it's funny. Like, if you see retarded people arguing with each other, I dare you not to laugh, right? It's a ridiculous thing. And it's so life. Like, that's what's funny about it. And to just act like now, like, oh, well, the way he treated Beetlejuice was abusive. Like, fuck off. Beetlejuice became a millionaire because of him. Okay? Now, did he keep his money? Probably not, because he's retarded. But, the fucking dude made tons and tons of money. You got to remember, the way he met Beetlejuice was he came in with some other guy, some other low-rent guy. Beetlejuice had parents. He had handlers who watched him. He came with some other low-rent guy who was fucking tossing him. Because he was a dwarf. And he would toss him And that's how Beetlejuice started out, and then Howard grabbed onto him and was like, it made him a huge star, and so much of one he was able to stop being tossed as a dwarf. People like Hank the Angry Dwarf, like that fucking dude never let Howard just shit on him all the way. Like anything that Hank did for the show, Hank thought it was funny too, right? Like Howard would obviously try and push the lines. Why wouldn't he? He was trying to just make the most radical and wild show ever. But like the people who didn't want to be the butt of the joke never became the butt of the joke. They had to stand up to him, and they would have to say something or whatever, right? Like all these stories are coming out like, wow, he exploited so-and-so, or he called this babe. Yesterday I was on the internet and looking at X, and some fucking douchebag communist guy was like, Howard Stern said this girl's fine as fuck, but he said she was ugly. He called her a butterface and got millions of people to think she was ugly. And he said she was fine as fuck. And I was like, dude, calm down. Slow your roll. She's certainly not the ugliest person I've ever seen, but to say like, she's like Carmen Electra in her prime, like be real, like calm down, guy. Like she was not that either, right? There's this extreme like push now to act like he was never good, and he had never said anything funny, and none of his bits were good. They were all just terrible. And I see a lot of it from the right. I see some of it from the left. The left mostly doesn't give a shit about Howard anymore, right? Like the true leftists, they really don't care about Howard. They have no use for anybody over the age of like 35 at this point. They really don't. They don't care about Pelosi. They don't care about Elizabeth Warren. They don't care about Eric Adams or Andrew Cuomo or Joe Biden or Obama even. Like, they don't fucking care about those people. They're going after young people, and that's it. They're solely propping up younger people. And anybody in the left, like the old Democrats, they don't give a fuck about you anymore, which is why it was laughable that George Clooney thought he had some pull and some sway, right? I mean, he did, just not the kind he thought he had. It was all the wrong sway. But, yeah, this just idea, like, we're too evolved to laugh at any of the stuff that Howard did. I think America would benefit a lot if we got back to some of the humor that Howard used to pull off, right? We used to laugh at the ridiculousness of Daniel Carver, the KKK guy, going on the show. Like, we could use that again, right? Like, nobody endorsed Daniel Carver on the Howard Stern show. He was there to be mocked, and mocked he was. But, like, nobody was, like, into it. Like, oh, yeah, this guy's saying racist shit. I'm totally, like, I want to hear more about this guy's, ideology. Nobody was saying that. Do you not think that we couldn't benefit from this at this point, right? It's almost like Gilbert used to talk about this on there was this movie made in like the 90s or something about the Rat Pack, right? The Rat Pack was Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr. And there was like this TV movie made about the Rat Pack. It was like a biopic. And in the movie, they kind of reimagined things, and the writers put their feelings into it. And so, like, anytime Dean made like a slightly racial joke towards Sammy Davis, because Sammy Davis was the black guy of the group, anytime he made like a slightly racial comment towards Sammy, or like a put down, like the camera would kind of slowly pan Sammy's face, and you'd kind of see his eyes tearing up a little bit, and you'd see that sadness, right? But like anybody, like it was complete bullshit, like retelling of what it was. But if anybody like knew Sammy Davis and knew Dean Martin and all those guys, like they all fucking just ripped on each other all the time, and like nobody cared, right? It was like they reworked this image, like they're trying to rewrite history. Like Dean Martin really did hurt Sammy a lot. Like Frank really got to Sammy a few times. Like bullshit. And now we're trying to do this with like I'm not gonna say that Will Ferrell was never funny. Will Ferrell was funny, right? There's like this rewriting of things. I think Ben Stiller was hilarious back in the day. Do I think he's funny now? No. And if I watch something he does now, I don't laugh. If I watch something like Dodgeball, I'll laugh. These guys were funny. These guys were talented. Howard was absolutely funny and absolutely talented. And I think everybody just needs to stop acting like it wasn't ever funny. Like, that's so fucking gay and lame to me. I don't even understand it. And for what? It's a different form of like virtue signaling. Like, we're so evolved now, we don't laugh at that, right? Well, what the fuck do we laugh at? Because I honestly don't laugh at a lot. I mean, even me right now, right? You could yell at me and say, "Wasn't this supposed to be a comedy show?" I'm not being funny at all. I'm actually having like a real conversation right now with myself. But like, not much is funny anymore, right? Because we can't even figure out what is supposed to be funny. We can't even be honest to ourselves to say what was funny. Like, therefore, nothing's funny right now. And that might be why Trump is so charming, right? He's funny because he's like rude and inappropriate, and that's what's great about him. he kind of is just a blunt asshole sometimes, and that's hilarious, right? Outside of that, not many comedians like tickle me pink. I don't know about you guys. Who's like a comedian that just splits your side? Nobody. I don't know anybody. The last person that really got me side-splittingly like laughing in like the last 10 years was Gilbert Gottfried's podcast. And then he died. And I haven't really ever laughed that hard again, right? My friends can make me laugh and shit like that, but like an actual comedian making me laugh that hard? I don't even remember the last time I laughed that hard at a comedian. It's been years. But it's not like I don't know what isn't. Like, I know what's funny still, right? Bill Burr used to be very funny. He's not funny anymore. I don't know what the fuck that guy talks about half the time anymore, right? Like, I see guys that make me giggle. I think Shane Gillis was his ESPY award was probably the thing like most recently that actually did make me laugh. I didn't like bust a gut. He said some really funny stuff on there. I thought his SNL monologue was super funny. Again, I didn't like lose it. I think the last comedy special I saw that like really made me like laugh super, super hard was probably Norm Macdonald's second to last comedy special, the Hitler's Dog or whatever that one was called on Netflix. That one made me laugh several times, super hard. Outside of that, I don't really have any that have just like that stick in my head. It was like, that was great, that was wonderful, that was brilliant. I literally can't think of anything right now. But anyway, let's stop with that. Like, oh, we're morally superior because we don't laugh at retarded people. Because I don't know. I see retarded people on Instagram and Twitter all the time that are obviously supposed to be funny videos of them doing ridiculous stuff. One of my favorite videos is that retarded kid getting into the pool, slamming the beers together and going, woo! Right? And he smashes the glass everywhere. Like, that's hilarious, right? Because it's funny. It's not because he's retarded. I mean, that helps. But it's not the only reason it's funny. It's just funny. There's something about his innocence and not knowing that those things are going to smash in his hands and like could possibly cut up his feet and whatever. Like, he's not even thinking about that. He's like like an excited person smashing beers together, thinking he's stone cold or something. That's why it's funny. And that video has been shared a million times, so I certainly wasn't the only one who found it funny. The reason the video exists is to be funny. So that video's funny, but Howard Stern's not funny anymore. Okay, right. Get back to me on that. Like, fuck off, people. Like, seriously. Howard was very funny, and we can say he was very funny. You can say it wasn't maybe your cup of tea, and even then I'll probably still think that you're lying, because I guarantee you, especially anybody who's old, right? Like older, anybody who's older who acts like they never listen to a show is just full of shit. I guarantee you they're listening. A lot of people were listening. More than people want to admit, maybe. Anyway, I think that's all I got for that. It's something that's been on my mind because I loved Howard. And obviously he sucks now, and I wish him the best in retirement. I don't think he's going to retire. I really don't. But I think he actually should try. I think I would have a little bit more respect for him again if he actually went and competed against Joe Rogan. I think that would be badass. He should do that, right? He should do that. Anyway, I think that's all. We'll be back again maybe tomorrow. I don't remember. No. Yeah, maybe tomorrow. I think I got somebody set up for tomorrow. We'll be back soon, though, with another episode. We're going to have some more guests and stuff like that. Anyway, thanks for listening. This is The Act.